I see the prototype system on your desk there. Is that something you can show our audience and
I mean, I can pick it up
how
again.
It works, yeah.
Yeah, it's an appearance prototype. The screen is touchscreen. The device weighs about 2.24 pounds. This was our first appearance prototype that I happen to have here. We've done some modifications to how it holds for a small hand, large hand, make sure it's effective. The cartridge, which we have a couple of different ones. One is actually this is actually a prototype, but the back of it does have a chip in it, which is the kind of the brains of the system. This also has an EEPROM in it, so it's a smart cartridge. And you'd place it into the device, and then whatever workflow we have for the particular analyte, then you would follow that. This is connected, so it has connectivity, Wi-Fi, USB, cellular, also has a GPS capability. So there's high capability in this device to report out, to monitor if we're using a flow cell versus our single use cartridge. But even that would be able to locate where am I, what did it do, what kind of test did I perform, who was it on, and then that data goes up into the cloud, and then we can disperse that data depending on what kind of regulation. HIPAA laws cover a lot of this when you're in healthcare, so we have to make sure we're HIPAA compliant. But when you're outside of that law, it's still who owns the data, and there's some important things that we've done to make sure that that is kept appropriately. So small unit, you can see it in my hand. I have a pretty big hand, but we've placed it in my wife's hand, and other folks have smaller hands. Very comfortable. 2.25 pounds is its current weight, though there are a lot of things we can do to bring that down. And the current form factor can be adjusted for certain applications.
Randall, why don't you give us a little bit of your background for our audience, how you got involved in healthcare and how you ended up at Artesia?
Well, that's a long story. I've been in nursing for a little over 40 years. I started in 1979 and going to nursing school in Las Cruces, New Mexico. I had been going to school for about 2.5 years and just about a semester out from getting my bachelor in psychology and trying to figure out what am I going to do for a living with that. And I realized I was going to be a Radio Shack sales manager with that because you really couldn't use it for anything else. I wanted to be a clinical psychiatric nurse. And when I went to my first clinical psychiatric student nurse rotation, I realized that wasn't for me. So I really enjoyed the medicine and decided that, well, maybe that would be still an outstanding opportunity for me. Trying to get into nursing was interesting. What am I going to do as a middle-class white American male back in the late 70s to get that step up, to get that next opportunity? And so I looked at nursing, and one of the reasons that I chose nursing is I could be a minority, which is a really unique situation for a middle-class white guy. And so that helped me to make that decision. My grandmother was a nurse, and it just seemed like a good opportunity. It was interesting that back in those days, there was very few male nurses. It was about 98% female still. And even currently today, it's still about 94% female. So there's lots of openings. I think males are making headways into nursing. And I think that will change the dynamics of the field going forward as far as being the breadwinner of the family and that type of stuff, as opposed to a female using it as a secondary income for a family. I think those concepts are changing.
Now, are you focusing on mostly hospitals in the metropolitan area, or are you guys nationwide? Tell us a little bit about Agilent's reach.
No, we're a nationwide company. We've got brick and mortar in Port Washington on Long Island, in the Chicagoland area, down in Miami, Milwaukee, and Austin, Texas. So we're a national provider of a reseller of equipment and services. We're a services first organization. So of course we want to fulfill product, but we'd like to do the professional installation services whenever appropriate.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, because Agilent has historically been a service company, right? And now it's sort of your mission to bring more product opportunities, IT, healthcare solutions to these customers, right?
Yes. Well, we've got a good history in healthcare, but we've got also a deep history in retail and point of service. It's a natural to joint that point of service over to point of sale to point of service on the clinical side. So we've kind of retrofitted our teams to provide clinical mobility solutions, which we're proud to be able to have Seal Shield as a partner of every clinical mobile device, med carts, documentation carts that go out, wall mount solutions. We always include a Seal Shield keyboard and mouse. And of course, the electroclave is a product that we've known and evangelized for a lot of years. And its time has come certainly now with what's going on in the world with infection.
And of course, for our audience, the Clean Talk podcast platform is all about infection prevention and bringing together solutions for infection prevention. And Mike, you talk about the Seal Shield products, of course, washable keyboards and mice that can be disinfected with cleaners. And you mentioned the electroclave UVC disinfection system, all part of solutions being used by healthcare for infection prevention. Cybersecurity is one of the hottest topics right now, and not just in healthcare, because it poses real threats in our system. You mentioned ransomware. We've heard the stories about hospital systems being held for ransomware. What more can you tell us about cybersecurity as it relates to healthcare, and what should we be focused on or conscious of in the cybersecurity space?
So ransomware is obviously the big one. And the reason for it is that ransomware is where hackers come in and literally lock up your systems. And there aren't too many healthcare organizations that have the ability to continue functioning. So there's some fairly recent stories. Scripps Health in San Diego last year had their systems down for almost 4 weeks.
Wow.
After a ransomware attack. And they literally had people the first few days in the parking lots pointing ambulances to go to other hospitals.
Oh my
so
gosh.
It absolutely affected life and death. But the other thing about ransomware is that it's expensive. It can get you in a lot of trouble. So Wood Ranch Medical, which is a small clinic, people in small clinics don't think that these things apply to them. But a small clinic in Simi Valley, California, went out of business after a ransomware attack, just shut down. So it's really important. Don't be afraid of it to the point of paralysis, but make sure that you're deploying good security. And where doctors often don't like to invest in security because it doesn't bring them a direct return on investment, like a medical device might, it's the protection against losing everything.
Now, you mentioned cybersecurity insurance. Is that the solution here? If you have a ransomware attack, if you're properly insured with cybersecurity insurance, does that solve your problem?
Well, Brad, I'm sure you have life insurance. Does that solve your problem for staying healthy? No,
Yeah,
of course not.
That's right. It's not keeping me
So
alive. It
it's
might
not
be
gonna
worth
keep
more
you
dead than alive,
Well,
Mike.
possibly. But what I'm getting at, I'm just being a little flippant here, but what I'm really saying is insurance is kind of the last line of defense, just like your life insurance. You're providing for your family and you buy insurance in case suddenly you're not there anymore, that your family doesn't lose their style of living or their, everything that they
Sure.
own. Cyber insurance is the same way, but it's not the alternative to doing the right things. We're talking to people in healthcare. When you go to the doctor examines you and comes up with a diagnosis and a treatment plan, but you still buy life insurance. And you buy life insurance for an entirely different reason. So you want to stay healthy, but you want to make sure that your insurance is the last resort that will cover the cost of something really bad happens.
The last line of defense.
Yes.
I've got with me here João, and João, really happy to have you on the show today. You know that Clean Talk is an infection control platform, but we're here at HIMSS talking about IT technology for healthcare. And I understand you're an influencer and an expert in the wearable space. What can you tell us about yourself and why you're here today?
Yeah, brilliant. Bradley, I'm truly excited to be here at AIMS. It's my first Teams. Also, it's nice to connect with people in person. Basically, my name is João Bocas. ACAD wearables expert. I'm a digital health global influencer. I have a social media audience. Also, I like to stir the conversations around healthcare, different subjects. I'm not an expert in this infection control, but also I know a little bit about healthcare, and I'm very passionate around wearables. So yeah, interested to know a bit more about what you guys doing. Very interesting what you said before the recording about the open platform, because I'm a collaborator and I like to hear good ideas to bring people together, to challenge and also solve big problems in healthcare.
Well, you queued me up there well, because for those of you that are new to the podcast, it is an open platform, an agnostic platform to help solve the problem of cross-contamination transmission infections. And we have had products on this show. We've had thought leaders on this show in the infection control space and in healthcare IT. I understand that you are an expert in the wearable space. I think this is really interesting technology, but I must admit, I don't know much about it. For someone who's a novice who doesn't know much about wearables, what can you tell our audience?
Well, I would say that wearables are here to stay. They will play a very crucial role in the healthcare of the future around education, disease management, diagnosis, diagnostics, prevention, management of long-term conditions. I would say wearables are the game changer in healthcare because they are the vehicle to help patients, help people acquiring data, and help the technology play this case the technologies to bring insights that will eventually solve big problems in healthcare.
Is there anything that you want to tell us about Vision 21 and the work that you're doing internationally with Vision 21 and the solutions that you're providing that you could share with our audience?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, Vision 21 is actually based out of Wake Forest. Interesting about Vision 21 is that we're not a box pusher, put it to you that way. We try to sell solutions to the customer. And I think that drives a little bit more sales than anything else, where we don't just want to go ahead and say, hey, customer, come to us and say, I want a computer. Well, yeah, but what you're going to be doing? You're going to buy a computer, or you're going to buy 100 computers. You need security. What you're doing with your security, especially with everything that we just talked about, security risk. You're talking to hospital infection controls. When you start talking to them and you start just not saying, yes, I want to sell you what you want, but also try to position different things, try to show them that, what else is there, then makes it a whole lot of different. There's a lot of resellers nowadays, your big resellers, your small resellers. What makes it different about Vision 21 is the way that we go to market with our customers, the type of relationship that we do. We don't just want to, be your sales guy, but, we want to be some sort of kind of different. In my case, I have a lot of customers where, before we talk about business, we talk about family, we talk about, I know their kids, I know their wife, because I've gone to visit them. I spend time with them. And that it's something that you don't see much in days on the reseller side, especially on the big ones, because they're more, let's do the transaction quick and let's move on to the other one. Versus sometimes if you try to maintain that relationship with the customer, probably you're not going to get that big sale at the beginning, but eventually throughout the years, you're probably going to get more than what you got at the beginning.
We're a healthcare technology podcast. Our listeners want to hear about the technology. Tell us about Microban technology and why it's important.
We play really in three thematic areas. And I think this is important for people to understand, especially as we're starting, at least in the West, to emerge from a global pandemic that's been multi-years in length. People have been redefined in terms of their view of microbes and bacteria and viruses, for sure, in the last couple of years. We've got a whole suite of technologies that help to redefine clean in meaningful ways on products that people will use in their homes, in their places of work, in their hospitals or healthcare systems, and in large public spaces. So the categories of our technologies are all over the map, but in the thematic areas, it's really around odor control and odor management for textiles, products, and footwear. So we've got a broad suite of technologies, which are odor control management agents, which help elongate the life of textiles, minimize the need for laundering, control permastink, and therefore create a longer service life. And in laundering, allow for less damaging laundering, which would typically release microplastics or microfibers into the waste streams and consume a whole lot of natural resources. The second category of our technologies is called built-in antimicrobials. And we're very proud of the fact that we can treat any substrate, any surface. And it literally is that. We can treat any polymer, any fabric, any wood substrate. We've got coatings that allow for the retroactive treatment of specific final made OEM goods. And so, once we incorporate that at the point of manufacture or do a bespoke after built treatment or coating, the technologies that we apply are good for the life of the product in permanently managing bacterium and fungus and mold growth agents at a much, much lower level than otherwise would be the case, and therefore helping to redefine clean and protect products of all types and substrates. And the third, and probably of the most direct interest to the audience today, is our first in the world products in continuously active disinfection and sanitizing solutions for home, professional, and healthcare sectors. We've partnered with Procter & Gamble to bring to market the Microban 24 line of products. There's multiple ranges within those SKU ranges for bath care, multi-purpose cleaning, and a sanitizing aerosol that people can use in their homes. And it's the first product ever certified by EPA for residual sanitization for use in home care surfaces, which means that once a surface is properly cleaned and utilized with Microban 24, it's good for 24 hours, even after multiple touches. Even if you clean with peroxides or bleach or Lysol or something else, immediately upon re-engaging that surface, or if something is airborne and re-engages that surface, you get a blossoming of bacteria growth on that. And it can be tens of millions of population growth in a 24-hour period. So Microban 24 helps keep those surfaces clean for up to 24 hours, even after multiple touches.